Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at a budget option laser engraver by Mecpow. This is called the X3 Pro. Before we get started, I do need to let you know this video is sponsored by Mecpow, who sent me this X3 Pro for review. That said, this is a first look video and my opinions are my own. I don't have to submit my material for any kind of approval beforehand. I'm just going to give a first look on this laser and tell you what I think about it. I'm going to take it out of the box, we'll set it up, we'll connect it to Lightburn, and I'll run a couple of engraves and cuts just to see how it performs. I promise you we won't do a whole unbox, but when it comes to buying expensive equipment, I like to show how it comes from the factory in the box. So you can see Mecpow's done a really nice job packing this. There is also a foam piece that goes over the top. I took that off inside, but there is a foam piece that goes over the top of this. But as you can see, everything's packed in this high density foam and it's all separated, so hopefully damage in shipping will be minimal, but it looks like Mecpow's done what they can do in terms of packaging. I'm not going to go through the actual unboxing process. I'll just take it out and we'll go through the parts individually. Before we get into the individual parts, I want to give you a little bit of information. First up, if you'd like to get one of these Mecpow X3 Pros for yourself, I'll have a link in the description. I'll also have a link for the standard X3, and I'll have a link for the honeycomb bed if you need one of those as well. Now regarding the specifications of the X3 Pro, again, 10 watt laser. This one includes the air pump. It is a fixed focus unit, so no autofocus, but they do include a focusing lens for this one. So you set the focusing lens on your object, you lower the laser down to that focusing lens, and then you remove the lens and you'll be at the right height for your engrave or your cut. So just keep that in mind, no autofocus on this one, manual focus only. It's got an emergency stop button, so if there's any kind of problem, you can hit the emergency stop right here. There's also a key switch to activate it and deactivate it for safety. There's also a flame sensor and tilt alarm, and I think that's really handy. In my own laser experience, there have been a couple of times I've kicked off the flame trigger, and I was kind of happy to have that because it just shuts everything down. And then there's also a tilt alarm, so if for any reason the unit moves while you're active, it will shut down for that as well. This device also includes limit switches, which is really nice in Lightburn, and the idea there is when the carriage moves, if it gets to the limit of travel, it hits a little limit switch and stops the movement. Mecpow claims an engraving accuracy of 0.01 millimeters and a speed of 10,000 millimeters per minute. According to the spec sheet, the X3 Pro should be able to cut 20 millimeter wood and up to 15 millimeters of acrylic. Okay, let's get into what's in the box. We'll start with the easy stuff. They include a couple of pieces of MDF for testing, so that's kind of nice, and a little metal piece, so if you want to practice engraving on the metal, you can. It's just thin aluminum. And then, as I mentioned, there is the focusing lens, so that's how you focus the laser on your workpiece. Next up is the user manual, and you can see on the left-hand side there are specifications for both the X3 and the X3 Pro. There's a package list, and then after the package list there are step-by-step instructions on how to put the laser together. And they're nice engineering diagrams that are exploded view. The pictures are very clear, so I don't have any problems there. It looks just fine. If you go with the X3 Pro, you'll get an air assist, and of course there's an addendum for the air assist module to explain how it works as well. Next up are the safety goggles. I'll leave these in the plastic bag because I already have some open, so I'll keep these as a spare. But they do include safety goggles and a little lens cleaning cloth, which is a very nice touch. USB and power cables and power adapter bricks or inverters, and it looks like another brick probably for the air assist unit. So all the power and USB connections you need to get everything fired up. The laser rails look true and square. I don't really see any problems there. I do see a little bit of flex in this one, but I think once it's screwed together, that should be no problem. Here are the long rails, and by the way, Mecpow does sell an extension kit, so you can extend the Y-axis up to 750 millimeters if you need to do that, if you need to work with larger workpieces, and again, limit switch on this one. Next up is the gantry, and you can see the wiring for the control panel is already connected to the gantry where the laser slots in, and the laser carrier is already mounted and ready to go. So it looks like fairly simple work to actually get this one put together. I don't think it'll take very long at all. The last few parts include a couple of legs that get screwed onto the corners of the frame. Next up is the air pump. There's a dial on top to control air pressure, and then there's a pneumatic hose that connects to the air pump right up on top. The other end, of course, will go into the laser. And here's the guest of honor. This is the Mecpow laser. This one, again, X3 Pro. It's got a wavelength of 450 nanometers, plus or minus 5. It's a fixed focus. Max input of the laser module is 12 volt, 5 amps. Max laser power is 10 amps. And this one does have a glare shield at the bottom. And then finally, a little tiny bag of hardware, and they even include a Phillips screw to put the whole thing together. And if you need a honeycomb grid to go underneath your workpiece, Mecpow has those as well. This one's 450 millimeters and it should fit just fine underneath. And there's also a stainless steel plate on the bottom, so you have that as well. Next thing I'll do is put it together and we'll take a look at how it performs. Okay, the assembly of the X3 Pro was really uneventful. The only thing I had an issue on at all was the USB driver for the device. The instructions direct you to go to the Zadig website and download a piece of software and use that to install an updated driver. I did follow the instructions in the book and that did not work for me. But what I did find out, if you go to the Mecpow website, they have a USB driver, and when I installed the one on their website, it worked perfectly. So I thought what I would do next is load up a materials test and we'll run that so you can get an idea of how this laser performs based on the settings in my material test. So I'm going to get that started, and while it starts working on the material test, I'll show you my settings that I used. For my material test, I'm running a 5x5 grid with a speed of 1,000 millimeters per minute on the slow end, 8,000 millimeters per minute on the high end, with min power at 50% and max power at 100%. And for the text, I have it running at 3,000 millimeters per minute and 100% power. So that'll wrap up really soon. We'll take a look at that. And while it's finishing up the materials test, I thought I would show you a cutout that I did. This is a little RCVR keychain that I made. This is 3mm birch plywood, and I used 500 millimeters per minute at 100% power, and it had no problems cutting that out. So the material test is done. Let's take a look at that. Okay, here's the material test, and you can see at 1,000 millimeters per minute and 100% power, we've got a very nice little line. And then at 4,500 millimeters per minute, we can see the full engraving. We don't lose any information, but any faster than that at 100% power and it starts to fade out. So I would say somewhere between 4,500 millimeters per minute and 2,750, you're probably gonna be fine at 100% power. Make note that my text labels were set at 3,000 millimeters per minute at 100% power. So that fits, that's right in that area that I just talked about. The last thing I want to do is put a piece of 4mm walnut hardwood on the engraver, and we're just going to cut a little circle out and see how it does. And I'm going to cut this at 400 millimeters per minute and 100% power. So here goes the test. I'm just going to cut a little circle out. Okay, that was 2 passes, 400 millimeters, 100% power. Then here's a look at the back side of the board for the piece I just cut, and that just pops out right there. So no problems on the laser cutting a 4mm piece of hardwood. And you can see I had a couple of other tests, but yeah, 400 millimeters per minute, 100% power, 2 passes, does just fine. I'd like to say thanks to Mecpow for sending this X3 Pro out for review. I didn't have any problems operating the machine other than that driver issue, and that was easily remedied just by using the driver available on their website. The assembly took me maybe 20 minutes. There's nothing really difficult about this, and it worked in Lightburn with very little effort. Just set it up as a GRBL or Gerbil cutter and you'll be good to go. In terms of performance, I didn't see any issues. It did what I asked it to do, cut a 4mm piece of hardwood and cut out a 3mm piece of birch ply without any problems at all. Maybe a little bit of tuning on speed and power, but the device works really well. So it looks like this is a pretty good option at about $300. It's got the airflow assist, the emergency stop, the fire alarm detection, the tilt sensor, the safety key up front, and really everything you need to get started. Don't forget to get yourself a honeycomb plate in addition to the laser. I'd like to say thanks again to Mecpow for sending the X3 Pro out for review, and a reminder, I will have a link in the description if you'd like to pick one up for yourself. If you like this kind of content, make sure you smash that thumbs up button, subscribe and hit the bell so you know new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.